So a couple episodes ago, I had the pleasure of being joined by Johnna Sutton, who is a functional nutritionist and a homesteader and a former lawyer and a lot of things. And I had more positive feedback from that episode from you all than I think any other episode I've done in the last couple of years. And with Johnna, we dove into nutrition for homesteaders, how to sort through all the noise around what type of food you should or shouldn't eat, and why eating just whole foods may or may not be actually, helpful for you in your stage of life, depending on what your body needs. So you guys loved her. I loved her. We had the best conversation. And at the end of that episode, I told her I'd bring her back. And today I am fulfilling that promise. So I am so excited to have Johnna back. And today we're going to shift a little bit into another area of expertise that she has. And that is the topic of light and circadian rhythm. And if you love the nutrition episode, which was in this season, episode 2, go back and listen to it. It's called The Missing Piece, Mastering Nutrition for Homesteaders. This is going to take that conversation to the next level. We're going to talk a little bit about nutrition, but a lot about light and circadian rhythm and all that good stuff. So Johnna, I am so pumped. Thanks for coming back.
Having me. I was telling you in the pre-chat, your listeners are amazing. Everybody was really respectful and kind. And part of the reason I never put myself out there to go on a podcast and where I've been off of social media is it's just kind of a scary place and people can be very unkind. And so I was pleased and very grateful to have the opportunity. And also I learned a lot about things that maybe I need to work on and providing more content, and it just motivated me. I feel so inspired going into 2025 now.
Awesome.
So thank you for the opportunity.
Absolutely. Yeah. Even I was actually talking to my mom on the phone last night and she didn't know we were recording today. And she's like, "Oh, Johnna, she was so cool. I loved her episode. I listened to it several times." And I'm like, "Guess what? She's coming back." So yeah, you're a great teacher and everyone loved how you explain things. So I appreciate that. So today's going to be good. Yeah.
It will. And I try to really simplify things. There's obviously a lot of nuance to all of this stuff. And so I do encourage people to reach out. A lot of people asked about resources. I'm going to try to provide some of that today when I'm talking about stuff because, obviously, last time, the whole nutrient to fuel balance is going to be different for collegiate athletes, right? So I had a lot of questions about that. And so when I provide this information, it's not medical advice. I don't have a relationship with anybody. It's just information. And so it's got to be kind of streamlined for the populace.
Yes.
So you really need to reach out and find a provider or ask questions and whatnot.
Yes, great advice. And at the end, we'll kind of remind people how they can get in touch with you. I know you're in Montana, but you can do your practice or your clinic where you work has some remote options too. Yeah. So we'll help everybody get connections if they want to work directly with you in your practice down the road too, for sure. But yeah, so in the last episode, we hinted a little bit at this topic of light and circadian rhythm, and then we ran out of time. And so today we're really focusing on that. And how that relates to our health and even our nutrition. I know there's a connection there. Can you just start us off with just make sure we're all on the same page, give us a little bit of historical context in why this matters today, where we came from, how we got here, and I guess maybe even just what is circadian rhythm, because I say that word a lot. I just drop it I'm an expert in it. And I'm wait, maybe I don't really know what it is to the full extent. So get us all on the same page.
Yeah. So thank you. So when I work with folks, I always start off by explaining, I look at things through a couple different lenses. Lens one is sort of the historical, traditional, ancestral lens. What did we do 100 years ago? What did we do even 50 years ago, 200 years ago? All of which is a blip in human evolution, and we're a biological creature, right? So there's that lens. And then the other lens would be the hard sciences, if you will, cell biology. How do our cells work? Quantum biology, which is a lot of what we're going to talk about today, and physiology. So I spend a lot of time thinking about these things, and most people probably don't. But I still think that a lot of people have an innate wisdom, and they sort of override that. So if you start actually thinking about a lot of the stuff we're going to talk about today, you're going to be like, yeah, duh, of course. But it's just we sort of overrode that. So I'm going to try to provide a little bit of historical background, and not even historical, because a lot of traditional cultures still practice a lot of these things. So it's winter in the Northern Hemisphere. And so I'm going to kind of couch this in Northern climates, like what have people historically done? And so I'm half Canadian. My mom's family is Canadian. My mom still lives in Canada. So I'm going to start with a story my grandma always told me. When I started having babies in Montana, so she grew up in a house in Eastern Canada with no plumbing in like the 30s and 40s. Very poor, the whole thing. And so as soon as she could, she hightailed it to California in the 60s and never looked back. So when I started having babies in Montana, she was like, all this wisdom, like knowledge came back to her. And she's like, oh, if my babies were having trouble sleeping, she would be like, okay, well, in the morning after you do your chores, you should bathe your babies and then wrap them up and put them in the pram, like a baby buggy, on the porch in the cold. I'm like, Grandma, it's like -6 outside. She goes, oh, it's fine. All you'll see is their little red nose, but they're going to sleep really well. and I thought she was nuts, but I was repeating the story to a friend of mine who's from Belarus just yesterday. And she goes, oh yeah, my family still does that. Like there you go. Like, all the babies are in their little buggies. It's freezing. And so a lot of this has historically been practiced, and it still is. My Belarusian friend was just saying, yeah, like back home, everybody still does winter swimming. Like they literally go swimming in the frozen water in the winter. And that seems very counterintuitive. Like if it's cold out, wouldn't you want to be all nice and warm and like not go outside? But there's actually a scientific reason why we would do these things. So that's what we're going to get into today. Yeah. So does that kind of make sense a little bit? Like,
yes. Yeah. I think there's definitely that fear of, our culture or just society fears discomfort so much. And I see there, and especially like, it's interesting with the babies and the parenting, because like most kids, my kids always fight me on wearing coats. And I just kind of, at this point, I'm like, if you're cold, you're cold. I don't care. Like, it's your choice. Don't complain if you get cold, because I'm not bringing a coat if you don't bring a coat. But I'm like, you won't die if you get a little chilly running around the park with your friends. You're not going to die.
Yes.
And so, but like, people don't love that. And like, you get shamed by other parents for taking that. So it's like, we have this cultural thing of a fear of cold.
Yeah, no, I think that's really, maybe it was you. Have you read that book, The Comfort Crisis?
Yes.
I can't remember who wrote it.
He's Michael Easter. He's been on the show. Yeah, he's awesome.
That's how I heard about the book, right? And I was like, yes. And I shared with you before we got started that, so we live in Montana, and we live on the Blackfoot River, but we live up a draw. So there's like the highway, the river, and then this dirt road up a draw where we live. So to get on the bus on the highway, the kids walk across the suspension bridge. So if you follow me on Instagram, you see it, because like today it was like sideways wind, negative, whatever. And my children, who are 11 and 9, were wearing like slip-on tennis shoes. My son was wearing shorts. And I fought them for so long that finally I'm like, you know what? Natural consequences. You're not going to die. And they're not going to die. In fact, their mitochondria and their cells are probably loving them right now.
Yep. I agree.
Yeah.
My type of parenting. Yeah, go ahead. Okay. Yeah. Sorry, rabbit trail, but that's a good one. Yeah.
I tried. And, when we first started out, like my extended family, your kids need to be wearing a hat. They're going to die. I'm like, they should be wearing a hat, but they'll know when they need to put a hat on. Yes. I think children, animals, they are so much more in touch with what they need than we are. And I think that's because we just override all this programming that we have. We like override our natural instincts.
Yes. Yep.
Anyway, okay. So that's kind of the historical, not historical, still happening context. There's a wonderful researcher named Savannah. I think her first name is Savannah Solberg. She is a PhD, an academic, and she's from, I'm probably going to get this wrong, but it's either Finland. I think it's Finland, not Norway. But she, obviously grew up there. She still lives there. She did a lot of the research on cold exposure and sauna. And so if you ever can read anything by her or listen to one of her interviews on a podcast, it gets real nerdy and sciencey. But she is doing the research to kind of confirm what those traditional practices are in Northern. So anyway, okay, so there's that. That's kind of the historical context. So kind of branching into the nerdy science part. So what is a circadian rhythm? Usually when I start out talking to people in clinic about this, I can see that they're thinking sleep, and often they'll interject and be like, my sleep's fine. Like, okay, well, that is part of it, but a circadian rhythm is actually the kind of 24-hour cycle that all of the systems it's the 24-hour cycle that regulates all of the different systems in our body. So when I say all systems, I mean body temperature, blood pressure, blood sugar, all of your hormonal system. So the release of cortisol, and then the flip side of that, the production of melatonin, that production of cortisol, which informs, our thyroid to make thyroid hormone, our sex organs to make sex hormones, our pancreas to make insulin. All of these things stem from our circadian clock, which happens from the are you ready for this? Suprachiasmatic nucleus in your brain.
I'm not going to try to spell that on my notes, so we're just going to leave it on. Okay. Oh, there we go. I got that. I can do that.
Yep. It's part of the hypothalamus. So if anybody's heard of the hypothalamus pituitary adrenal axis, that HPA axis, we talk about that in terms of being in a parasympathetic state versus like a fight or flight or sympathetic state. Your brain controls all of that, and specifically that SCN is what sets the circadian rhythm of all the different systems in your body. So what impacts your circadian rhythm is your environment, right? So there's certain Zeitgebers. Zeitgeber just means signals that are from your environment that are going to tell your SCN in your brain to tell all your different organs what to make and how much at what time, right? That's what your circadian rhythm is. So if you are having any issues with your sleep-wake cycle, hormonal imbalance, even if it's a thyroid issue, or blood sugar regulation, energy production, all of those things have its root from getting that signal in your brain. So I kind of break these Zeitgebers into three big buckets: light, temperature, and food. And with food, I don't just mean the kind of food, but actually the when that we're eating. So if I don't get to that, remind me.
Okay.
So all of these things provide information to that SCN and the hypothalamus to tell all the other organs in the body what to do. So if that is out of sync, everything else is going to be out of sync. And then we get these signals from our body, from our cells, that something's wrong. Some people call those things symptoms. Right?
Yes.
Does that make sense?
That totally makes sense. And thank you. That's the best explanation I've heard on that.
It's hard to simplify it because there's a lot. But anyway, so if we just start with, I don't know, we should probably start with light and then temperature and then food.
I like go down the list. I think that'd be awesome.
Okay. All right. Okay. So light. There's visible light and non-visible light. So the visible light would be the colors of the rainbow, right? The Roy-B Viv, or the whatever it is, Roy-Biv.
Yep.
Red, orange, yellow, blue, indigo, violet. And then the non-visible light would be your UV light, so UVA, UVB, and then infrared. So all of these things inform your body of what to do. Specifically to that circadian clock, the clock part, the visible spectrum has the most impact. Specifically of the colors, the blue color is the most influential on the working of that clock. Okay. So, and this is where it gets confusing, because as soon as I say that, people will be like, I know blue light's bad. Like, well, no, blue light's not bad. We need it, or we wouldn't make cortisol and then we wouldn't wake up and we would just die.
Yeah.
Right? So it's not bad. It's just that in the last probably even just 10 to 20 years, those blue signals have gotten really out of whack. So the way it would work in nature, right, is that it's dark. So let's just start from the beginning. It's dark and you're sleeping. You're making very little cortisol. You're making lots of melatonin. So you're sleeping. That melatonin is repairing your cells. So when you hear about mitochondrial health, the mitochondria is the part of your cell that turns your food into energy. So that healing happens when we're bathed in that melatonin in the dark. Then you wake up and you will get a rise of cortisol when you wake up. If it's dark out, then your eyes aren't seeing any visible light. So this is the way it would have been like 150 years ago or whatever. You would wake up and maybe light a candle. And in that candle, there's a little bit of red and orange and yellow. There's no blue at all. And then the sun will start to come up. And at sunrise, which this time of year in the Northern Hemisphere is around 8 a.m. or so, it changes throughout the seasons, which means that signal to our eye will change, which means our hormones, digestion, all the other things should change by season. And so if you didn't see any light, because it's dark out, and the first light your eyes would have seen would have been sunrise. So your eyes would have received outside, because the windows, especially modern windows, block a majority of the light, despite what people think. There's this wonderful app, side note, called My Circadian by Sarah Kleiner, and it will not only tell you sunrise, sunset, UVAs, UV set, it has a lux meter on it, and you can measure like how dark it is in your house versus outside. Anyway, back to the way nature should work. So the first light your eyes see is sunrise, and that light comes in your eyes, no blue, just very, it's the warmer colors, sends the message to your SCN, okay, it's sunrise. In about 12 hours or so, sun will go down and I should start making melatonin. So your cortisol will be like low, and then it will start to come up. About an hour after sunrise, there's a UVA rise. We'll get into that more later. And then around midday is really when you have all that blue light. So if you've ever done like a hormone, like a Dutch test or a cortisol test, your cortisol curve should look like this. That is the trajectory of the sun, specifically the blue color of that visible spectrum. So then as solar noon comes down, then the blue light goes down and we're back to the yellow, red, orange, whatever. So that receiving that blue light from the sun in that natural arc is what sets your circadian clock. What has happened in the last, really honestly, like 10 to 20 years, I did the research on this, is that those signals have gotten really screwed up because, like when we were young, the light bulbs in our house were incandescent bulbs, right? So incandescent bulbs create light by making infrared heat. So there's really no blue light in that. They created heat and there was this warm light, and that was that. They're not very efficient because they're making light by making heat. So we developed this technology to make LED bulbs, which harnesses just that blue, maybe a little green light, to make more efficient energy. So that became really abundant in like 2013. I could be wrong about this. I just did this research. Like not that long ago.
Okay.
Which is about the time that people started having smartphones.
Yes.
Like that's when smartphones were a thing that everybody kind of had. So that's really only been the last, 10 to 15 years. So now when we wake up, especially in the Northern Hemisphere, you're usually waking up before sunrise. So it's dark and you go in the bathroom and you flip on your light, and all those lights, which are in the position sun would be in, Those LED bulbs are blue light. So now your brain thinks that it's noon. And it's like, whoa, okay, I was making melatonin and now it's noon. I obviously skipped something. I should pump out a bunch of cortisol so that we catch up, right? Because something's wrong. Then you go to your phone and you look at your phone and you scroll your blue light, and then you make coffee. And I'm not anti-coffee. I love coffee, but that also will stimulate a cortisol response.
Yep.
You've eaten nothing. All you've done is see this artificial blue light, and your cortisol levels are up. And that tells your adrenal glands, okay, make all this cortisol, which then says, okay, Johnna's going to start doing something. We need glucose. She hasn't eaten. So let's make glucose from her tissue. So now your bloodstream is full of blood sugar because you're going to be doing things, right? So your brain is trying to, like, the human body wants to be in homeostasis. Like we want it's just working so hard to keep you in this balance. And our modern life is working real hard to keep us out of balance.
Absolutely. Yes.
So then your cortisol levels are already kind of out of whack. And then a lot of my clients, because it's the only time that they can, they're going to the gym in fluorescent lights, or they're going in their basement, flipping on all the lights, and they're thinking, oh, I better turn on that sad light, which is exclusive blue light, so that I feel awake and I get going.
Yeah.
And it's like, okay, I'm not anti any of those things, but if you think about these as a Zeitgeber, the light signals you're giving your brain right now is that it's noon. Okay. And that's going to throw off your blood sugar, your thyroid hormone production, and everything else. So by the time you even get your day started, those signals are kind of out of whack. Are you still with me?
I am. I'm fascinated. I mean, I knew a little bit of this. I didn't know. Hey, friends. So I'm interrupting this episode for just a second to talk about something that I actually used to be really embarrassed about. So much so that I never talked about it publicly. And that is the fact that every summer I would basically completely fall out of love with cooking. So much so that I just didn't want to do it anymore. And I was thinking that I was the only one who felt like that until recently, when I started to share my deep, dark secret online. And I found out that many, many of you feel the same way. I think it's just because we have so much going on in the summers that it's just really hard to find that motivation to get in the kitchen and put food on the table. The problem is, our people, well, they still want to eat, unfortunately. So we still have to find ways to nourish them and ourselves in a cost-effective and healthy way. So I've been wrestling with this problem in my own life, and, for those of you, for many years now, trying different things, experimenting with different ideas. And I finally have created something that I think may just help. I know it has helped me. It's called Mealcraft, and it's not your typical meal planning system. Rather, it's a set of customizable frameworks that are endlessly flexible based on what you have in your gardens, your pantries, your freezers, your larders. You don't have to go to the grocery store to do specific shopping trips or anything like that. We're just using what you have, which really is what homesteading is all about. So Mealcraft gives you 4 new frameworks each month. And I'm personally having so much fun with these because they can be different every time, saves me a lot of money. It's reducing the leftovers and the waste that's coming out of my kitchen, and it just makes it a lot more enjoyable. So if you'd like to join us over in Mealcraft, over 600 of you have already joined the fun. You can visit the link in the show notes to learn more. Now, back to our episode. Yeah, you're good. Keep going. This is so good.
It's hard to put it all together because it's like, okay, so then next people will be like, well, what am I supposed to do? Like, obviously, I'm not going to move into a Laura Ingalls Wilder, whatever in the woods. Like, well, a lot of this stuff, people already have an innate instinct. They're like, gosh, I've heard, like my mother-in-law would always say, I just feel like, God, you're getting out of, goodness, you're getting out of the bed and it's like you're being shot out of a cannon in the morning. Yeah. And we're making that more by having all these artificial light signals. So really what you would want to do, this is like a perfect circadian. Well,
that's what I was going to ask you. What's the perfect? And then maybe we can, adjust our individual routines close to perfect,
Yes.
but not actually all the way perfect. Yeah.
Yeah,
So yes,
totally.
please proceed.
Yeah, this
Yes.
is not about perfection. It's about consistency. And this is really important with circadian health. Consistency is the most important thing. They tell you this when you're raising kids. Just have a consistent wake time, a consistent bedtime, consistent. It doesn't have to be perfect. Your brain's not dumb. Right? So big picture, whatever's going on outside in terms of the light environment, ideally that should be going on in your house. So I wake up between 6 and 6:30. Usually it's pitch black because it's Montana in February. And I get up. In an ideal world, I would just go, read by candlelight.
Yeah.
But I don't do that because my kids have to get on the bus across the frozen river at 7:45 a.m. Details. And, I have a job and we have farm animals and all the things. So that would be ideal. What my morning routine typically looks like is we have, and I'm not trying to overwhelm people here. The first step we took a couple years ago was all these recessed LED lights. We do not turn them on in the morning because they're in the position of the sun and it's all blue light. So I just started leading by example and not turning those on.
Okay.
Next, I thought, where's this blue light, these artificial lights bombarding me the most in the morning and at night? And it's the bathroom and the kitchen.
Yep.
And there's no avoiding that. You need some kind of light.
Yeah.
So what I did was there's a couple options. You can get just like a table lamp, like a little table lamp, a teeny one. And I bought incandescent bulbs online, which a lot of places you can't get them at the hardware store anymore, but they're called Edison style bulbs.
And they look cool. I like them.
They look pretty and they feel nice. The other thing I did was I got these. I used to think these were so crunchy granola. These Himalayan salt lamps.
Yeah.
They are like $20 at Target. We have one in the bathroom, in each bathroom. We have one in the kitchen. So I have those. And they kind of it's really nice, calm light. And it's enough light that you can wash your face, do kind of your morning routine, make coffee, and without all the lights on. And then there's companies, one of them is blockbluelight.com or Bond Charge. And they have like circadian friendly lighting that you can get bulbs to change in your kitchen and bathroom. Those are the biggest places, honestly, where it's an issue. So it's still 6:30 a.m. I'm making my coffee, and then usually my kids will get up and they didn't get the memo, so they will often turn on all the lights. And so then I put on these.
Yes.
And if you're not watching on video, they're really nerdy looking orange tinted blue blockers. So this is not popular, but the clear ones don't work. I used to have the clear ones, and my common sense would kick in, and I'm like, I'm pretty sure these don't work because I can still see the blue digital time on my oven.
Oh, so good observation. Yeah.
Why can I still see that? I had an optometrist that was a client, and he told me they block like a little bit, but really not enough to be beneficial when you want to be blocking the blue light. And they can actually be harmful during the day when you want to see blue light because that's when it would appear in nature.
Sure.
So like a lot of people have those in their prescription lenses and it's not horrible. But when I get to like the daytime, what do I do during the daytime?
Yes.
You probably want to have some time where you're able to just take your glasses off and allow natural light to get into your eyes.
Sure.
But anyway, back to morning. So I wear these and then sunrise happens around 8 a.m. There's no real sun here around 8 a.m. because it's cloudy and snowy and we're hidden by mountains. It doesn't matter. I'm going to repeat that. It does not matter. The light outside doesn't have to be sunny and beautiful. The cloudy, rainy, awful, that light is still informative to your brain.
Okay. That's good to know. I had that. That was one of my questions. So thank you. Yes.
Yes. Yeah. Okay. Everybody asks that. And if you use this fancy little lux meter, you can actually test it. So you can test the light looking out through your glass, like window, and then go outside, and it'll be significantly higher lux. Lux is just how strong the light is. So 7:35 rolls around, and I've got to take my kids down to the bus stop. So what I will do is ditch my glasses, and I just roll down the window in my car a little bit. And this serves two purposes. My eyes are getting that morning light around sunrise, and it's cold. Yeah. Very cold, which is another Zeitgeber, and we can dive into that later. But basically, you would want cold signaling in the morning. That tells the brain it's morning, it's cold, there's very little blue light, it's probably winter, you know, like it's informing your brain. So then we drive down to the freezing cold bridge and we walk across the freezing cold bridge. I do not wear sunglasses. I just allow that light to kind of get in. Kids get on the bus. I walk back. And for homesteaders, this is where it's really helpful because that's also sunrise time is when usually your animals want to get up anyway. Yep. Right? So the rooster's crowing in the barn, whatever. So I will time my morning chores at sunrise so that I'm just getting that time. Most people are probably already doing that. It's just about being intentional and being like, oh yeah, I'm going to do the morning chores, honey, because I need sunrise eyes. That's what we call it. Sunrise. Yes. So that's sunrise. That sets that circadian, that cortisol response. About an hour after that, UVA will rise. So UVA is one of your non-visible lights. So just interrupt me if I need to answer a question. But
you're good.
Yeah. So UVA will rise even in winter, about an hour after sunrise. And it's not very strong, like it's like a 1 or 2 or something. Like that is like the strength of that non-visible light. Okay. That UVA rise, if you can get some of those rays on your skin, that sends the signal for hormone production. So pregnenolone, which is like the grandmama sex hormone to make estrogen, progesterone, testosterone. I'm simplifying all of this, but thyroid, all of that. Okay, so now I've gotten some UVA rise. In the winter, there is no UVB rise. Usually like north of Atlanta, if you Google UVB map or something like that, I can't remember, sun map, that UVB is the non-visible light that when we have it will bind to cholesterol and make vitamin D. So that is how that happens. Okay. So in the winter time in northern hemispheres, like we don't really have a UVB at all. In fact, that little app will say your UVB will rise on February 14th at 12:11 p.m. and there will be very little UVB light for 12 minutes. Oh. So if you actually wanted to try to make vitamin D, you would need to go outside at 12 o'clock on Valentine's Day and expose all of your skin and try to make some vitamin D.
To make some vitamin D. Okay.
I would not suggest that.
Probably not going to be doing that, but thank you.
Just to answer that question. So we don't have any UVB in the winter. As a side note, historically, people were not taking vitamin D supplements.
Yes.
A lot of people do. You don't have to, but you would have to have a good, strong vitamin D level going into winter. So in the summer months, there's a very strong UVA and UVB signal. So, if you got out at sunrise, UVA rise, UVB rise is usually a little bit after that. Depending on your skin tone, so lighter skin needs less UVB light because they have less melanin in their skin. And darker skin needs more exposure to UVB light. If you had optimized getting natural sunlight on your skin without clothes on and without all the sunscreen and everything. I'm not saying go crisp yourself, please. Sure. I'm just saying you can go 10 or 15, 20 minutes with some UVB light and make enough vitamin D, and then you can put your clothes on and do your sunscreen, whatever. You will store that vitamin D. So if you had optimized your UVB exposure in the summer, then by winter, when there is no UVB light, people in northern cultures would have adapted to store that.
That's fascinating. Okay.
Right?
I did not know that.
Yeah. And so food sources of vitamin D are pretty scarce. It's basically like the liver of fatty animals. So cod liver oil, fatty fish like salmon, and the fat of fatty fish like steelhead, trout, herring. So in Canada and a lot of northern cultures, they do kipper snacks, which is basically pickled herring, which I'm not a huge fan of, but has vitamin D. So so that's the UVB thing. So those are the non-visible spectrum. And then as you go through your day, in terms of the visible light, after you've seen sunrise, you've experienced UVA rise, if you can somehow structure your day around that, even if it's like, okay, I don't have farm chores, I don't want to go outside at all. This is a lot of my clients. I will say, okay, then at sunrise, ditch your glasses and at least open the door and stick your face out.
Okay.
Or roll down the window on your car. Just 5 minutes consistently is going to help reset that clock.
Okay, and that was my question. Like, it doesn't have to be hours. It can, it doesn't last for hours anyway, but it can be even just a little bit is better than nothing. Yes,
and consistency is more important than perfection here. So you're much better if you can even do 2, 3, 5 minutes at sunrise every single day versus, well, I did 2 hours on Saturday.
Sure.
You're trying to reset a clock. So you really have to be consistent. So for my shift workers, this is really tough because they're either in a hospital, in a classroom, they're at the convenience store, retail. For them, I'm like, if people can take smoke breaks, I think you could try to schedule a light break. And maybe people think you're nuts for saying that, but just like, okay, I need a break, go outside 5 minutes, or at least try to crack a window in your office if you have one, whatever. And then during the day, the same is true, where you want to get as much natural light as you can, outside preferably. So if you're driving your kids around to sports, roll down the window a little bit. They're going to hate you, by the way.
Yeah. But they'll, good for them. It's good for them.
It's cold. They're like, I don't care about my mitochondria, Mom. I do.
Helping you out, child.
It's like, so that cold and the light is really good for everybody because it's telling your brain knows. So you're getting all that light. So I've even advised clients to just set a timer on their phone every hour and a half. And there's an app, one of those circadian apps, you can set a timer every 90 minutes and a bird will chirp and remind you, get off your computer, go outside 2-3 minutes, get some light. For people that have seasonal affective disorder and they've been advised to use those SAD lamps.
Yes.
That's when you would use the SAD lamp, is like the middle of the day.
Yeah, because it's blue, you said. Those lights are blue. Yeah.
Yeah, and that's when in nature there would be a lot of blue light, is the middle of the day, not at 6 a.m.
Yep.
So getting light breaks during the day. And so now sunset is going to happen. And here that's like between 4:35. Sunset's beautiful if you can get out for it. If you can't, because you're making dinner or whatever, that's fine. Be aware of when it is. Once it's dark outside, you kind of repeat what you did. Repeat what you did at night or in the morning.
In the morning, yeah.
Turn off the overhead, do the lamps, light a fire, put on your blue blockers. For people with really dysregulated sleep, I advise a 3-2-1 rule. 3 hours before. So if you're cooking dinner, or your kids are in a basketball in a well-lit gym, like what, it's not perfect. I get it.
Yeah.
But when you come home at least 3 hours before bed, you either need to be off all screens or you need to be wearing these super cool glasses again. And 3 hours before bed, 2 hours before bed, and you could swap the 3 and the 2, but stop eating. Stop eating. Because when you eat, you're going to get a cortisol response.
Yes.
When you're making cortisol, you are not going to make melatonin. And your gut also can't digest as well. 1 hour before bed, all screens off, read something paper, get a blue light, or wear your blue blockers. Or my daughter loves having, so this is kind of nerdy, but she has like a red bulb. So she has like this, or a little, it's like a clip-on reading light, but it's red. It's red. There's no blue in it. So you can go on blockbluelight.com and get those things.
Okay.
And then go to sleep.
Yep.
So in the winter, there's more dark. We should be sleeping more. If you're tired at 8, go to bed.
Yes.
Don't override that signal, because our mitochondria are doing a lot of healing during the winter time, but they can't do that without dark and cold. Does that make sense?
It does. And I have felt that when I was younger. I used to push back against our long winters so much because I'd get bored, and get cabin fever and stuff. But like, man, the older I get, the more I'm like, I just crave the winter. I love the pace of summer. It's great. But like, I love the cold and the dark. And people are like, how do you live in Wyoming? I'm like, I like it. I like the winter. I like the shorter days. I need it. I require it. I think when we can just respect the seasons for what they are, it feels so much better.
It does. And you'll start to feel like it feels good in a way that making your own bread feels good.
Yep.
Like you can't really explain it. Like obviously I could go to the store and buy bread, but like it just feels human. Like
it does.
Doing what a human is supposed to do.
It feels right. And it's funny.
In my natural habitat.
They said you'll kind of, at the very beginning that we all kind of have an innate knowing of what we need to do. We just ignore it. But like, there is something I feel offended in the morning if all the big lights are on. Like I feel annoyed. Like I feel agitated. I used to be like, wow, you're a control freak. And I'm like, no, I think it's my body. Like, this is not natural. Like turn off the big lights. I'll just turn on the little lights. I love the idea of the salt lamps or, changing in some incandescent bulbs, but same at night. Like I don't like all the big overhead lights on. It just feels wrong. It just feels icky. So
yeah, I think a lot of people. Yeah, my best friend, she lives in Southern California, and she came to visit last winter with her kids, and she goes, "Everybody's just so much calmer. I wonder if it's the lighting." Like it is. We don't have a TV in our living room. Everybody's not on screens. Like after dinner, all of that's off, and it's calm.
Yes.
Not that we never go watch a movie together.
Sure.
I'm just saying, like, yeah. So, so sleep more in the winter. And then went back to, so we were talking about like the visible light and then non-visible, the UVA, UVB. There's another form of non-visible light called infrared. This you would think of as heat. So in the summer, there's a lot of infrared. There's a lot of heat.
Yep.
That is why we're more insulin sensitive and can eat more of that sugar and starch rich food because our body's expecting that, because that is what's growing when it's heat, when it's hot. In the winter, there's really no infrared heat, very little, right? And now that we don't have incandescent bulbs, our modern lighting also doesn't have infrared. So the natural sources of infrared would be fire.
Yeah.
Body heat, like anything that creates heat, right? Also hot baths, hot springs. So I don't know about in Wyoming, but in Montana, going to the hot springs in the winter is like a thing. Everybody does it.
Yep.
And I never understood it because I'm like, it kind of stinks. I don't get it. But saunas in northern countries, huge in the winter. And it's because it's the only source of infrared heat. And most people crave that. They don't want to do the cold plunging in the winter. So this is the whole temperature piece, because temperatures is like Geiger too. If you're going to move these temperature levers, then in the morning time is when you would do the cold. So it's very easy to do if you just I'll just go outside to feed the barn cats in like a tank top.
Okay. Yeah.
And I'm like, it's freezing.
Yep.
I'm going to die. But,
yep. but you'll be fine.
Yeah.
Yep.
Sometimes that does not appeal to me. And we really need to listen to that signal. And I will just splash cold water on my face, get a little ice cube. This can help promote brown fat.
Yes.
Brown fat is just fat that has more mitochondria. So it's good for your metabolism. So when we talk about metabolism, we're talking about mitochondria. So this is where when people want to do cold plunges and exposures, I try to get them to do that in the morning. So if they take a shower in the morning, end on cold. Try to get cold. If you're going to do a cold plunge, you would do that in the morning. And this Savannah Solberg has done the research on this. You're not going to get an increased benefit by doing it more. I think her research suggested 11 minutes total per week.
Per week? Oh,
yeah. So you could do like a couple cold plunges a week for 2 to 3 minutes and a cold shower, and you're fine.
Okay.
And for women, especially with hormone, you need to, if you're trying to get pregnant or if you're, around ovulation time, you definitely don't want to be overdoing the cold plunging.
Okay.
More is not better. So that's morning. For heat, for the heat, this infrared, you really want to harness that in the evening. Okay. So and most people want this anyway.
Yep.
Like a hot bath, hot shower, sauna, and that will heat up your internal body temperature, heal your mitochondria. It can also, that increased body temperature can help keep viruses in check, right? That's what a fever is.
Yep.
And when your body receives that hot temperature, then it's going to cool itself. And that will allow you to have more restorative sleep. So you're going to fall asleep better. Yeah.
I've wondered that because I grew up sleeping in an unheated basement. So I sleep best in a very cold room.
Yes.
And my kids are like that too. Is that just
That's good.
Weirdos because we're genetics? Is that like a normal human thing? We need the cold to sleep. Okay.
Yes. You should be in the cold to sleep.
Okay.
Because if you think about it, if you're really warm and toasty, when you get into your bed, then you're all snuggled and warm, right? And so you're going to sleep, so you should keep your room if you have a thermostat. We don't, like you. My daughter's room is in the basement. It's 47 degrees in there. It's freezing.
Yeah.
But she sleeps great, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
And we're meant to sleep in the cold. In the winter in particular, because it's cold outside. We wouldn't have had a furnace to keep it at 70 degrees. So I try to get people to go, what is your thermostat at now? If it's at 70, why don't you try to go back down to 66? Try to get it around 60, 62.
Yep.
You're going to save energy.
Yeah.
And
totally.
you're also going to sleep better. And then in the morning, when you wake up and you get out of that, all your covers, you're cold. And that cold signal, it's like caffeine. Yeah. It's like, okay, it's morning, you're cold, get up. And this is the way everybody would have done it before we had furnaces and all the things. So yeah, that is kind of the infrared. There's one more thing I want to mention about infrared, red light therapy.
Yes.
So a lot of people ask about this. It is awesome. So the sciencey term for it is photobiomodulation, where you're basically harnessing these red and infrared wavelengths of light that we don't really get a lot of in the winter because there's no strong sun. So we have a red light panel that we will sometimes use in the morning and in evening just as ambient light.
Okay.
It's really nice. My daughter likes it so much that she had me get these like red light bulbs to put in her room because she just feels calmer.
Okay.
But there's thousands of studies. If you go on PubMed and go, red light therapy and insert chronic disease, So the infrared from these devices will stimulate mitochondrial health. So if you have chronic fatigue syndrome, there's a lot of cognitive benefits. So Parkinson's, all of that kind of stuff, MS. It can also boost collagen production. And this isn't just a vanity thing, but because collagen keeps our whole body together. So your gut integrity. So I'll have people with gut issues kind of shine the red light on their belly. I try to get people to do that a couple times a week. So instead of Botox or taking a collagen supplement, you could just eat ground beef and shine a red light on your face.
Oh, I can do that because I'm not really feeling the Botox thing. I don't really want to do that. No. So, but I can do ground beef and the lights.
Me neither. I'm like, I'm not sure. I'm approaching 47 and everybody seems to not have wrinkles on their forehead. And I'm pretty sure this is the time we should have wrinkles on your forehead.
Yes. Yes. I
know
that same thought. Like,
like, it's okay. It's natural. But if that is something, just for if you, wound healing, red light can improve wound healing, which is why in the summer we tend to heal faster generally. It's because there's more infrared. It reduces inflammation. So if you've got tendonitis, you can put it on your ankle, whatever. So red light is a great tool. So how to work that into kind of your circadian day?
Yes.
It would be morning time or evening time. And there's not really a dose response. A lot of people I find are really starving for this kind of light because we are just getting bombarded with blue light all the time. And we're not getting red light. It's not a thing. You can get a panel for a couple $100, which sounds pricey, but if you weren't buying collagen powder or something, I guess you could it's a trade-off.
Yep.
And just do it as much as it feels good.
So I have a panel, and for a while I was trying to be disciplined, and I would sit in front of it, because they said you had to be. Keep my eyes closed so I wouldn't hurt my eyeballs, and then I'd sit in front of it and for 5-10 minutes, and then I don't have time for this, and I can't sit still that long. So is it beneficial if it's like you said, is ambient light? Like if I have it in the bedroom in the morning at night and I'm reading a book, is that if I'm 10 feet away from it, is it still helping?
Yeah, I think it's still helping because you're still receiving that light signal. Okay. If you want to use it for a therapeutic purpose, like wrinkle reduction or cognitive function or eyesight, then it needs to be about 12 inches away from your face. And you can close your eyes. You don't have to stare directly at the light. I sometimes will.
Okay.
So it depends on the person.
Oh, you will?
I do it anywhere from 5 to 20 minutes. It just depends on the morning. And you don't need to do it every single day. Just like with the cold exposure. I mean, if you can do this 4 or 5 times a week, you're going to get great therapeutic benefit. Without having, it's just like exercise. You don't have to, you had a guest on who talked about this. You don't have to go run for an hour every single day and lift weights every single day to get benefit. It's all the little tiny things that add up.
Yep. Okay.
So we try to do it in the morning, more on the weekends. So let's see. Yeah. So that's kind of the big one with infrared. Am I missing anything? I don't think. With light, do you have any questions about blue light blockers? I think we talked about that.
We talked about that. I love your routine. That was so helpful. Because just to the cycle in the arc, that's fantastic.
Yeah. And when people get their hormone tests back, sometimes usually their cortisol is either flatlined or it's like a Swiss Alps. Because their cortisol is too high. And then when I talk to them about managing cortisol, they immediately think stress management, which is true. But sometimes that's really hard for people to do. Manage their stress just sounds really overwhelming. But if you can align the inside of your home with what's happening outside a little bit more in terms of light, cold, and heat signals, then I think you're going to get a lot more benefit in managing your cortisol and blood sugar than from trying to, you should still manage your stress. But I'm just saying,
Right.
part of that is probably light. And I think that's why when people say we're more stressed now than ever, I think what they're referring to is our modern environment does not align with the natural environment.
Absolutely.
And so our physiology is more stressed.
Which I would totally agree with. Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And so one more thing on food, because we talked about this a little bit about how, like in the summer, you're super manic, you're burning through all of these nutrients. There's a lot of infrared, there's a lot of heat, there's a lot of UV light. The days are longer. So all of this wonderful produce and whatever is growing, and we are going to be, as long as you're insulin sensitive and you're not insulin resistant or pre-diabetic or something like that, then you should be able to enjoy all of that seasonal food. But this is where I kind of like to talk about seasonal eating. We talked about it a little bit.
Yes.
There's a great website. I think it's called seasonalfoodguide.org. Okay. Now, obviously, most homesteaders are going to kind of know what is seasonal in their area, but we just, for kicks yesterday, put in our zip code and pulled up early February, Montana, and it was like mushrooms, endive, and sprouts.
Yeah, I know.
And, but I think that's informational. You know, if my daughter still craves a banana or an apple, then I think she's in touch enough, being a young person, with her body and her needs, that I'm going to buy the apples. But I think that we should pay attention to the fact that those things are not growing here right now.
Right.
So more protein, more fat, fatty fish, your onions and your garlic, your potatoes, your sauerkraut, which I already talked about this last time. But, if I get this question a lot about fiber, especially after the last episode. Mm-hmm. Like, well, if I'm eating all this protein, where am I going to get enough fiber? Isn't that a problem? So this is maybe a controversial thing to say, but in the winter, there really aren't fibrous things growing.
Yeah.
Right? Right. When I say fiber, people think beans and oats. Yes, those foods have fiber, but they also have quite a bit of starch compared to the amount of fiber in it. Doesn't mean that those things are bad. But my point is so the reason we eat fiber is to feed those microbes in our gut and keep our microbiome balanced. There's another way to do that, and that's by eating polyphenol-rich foods. So polyphenols are plant compounds that we would think of as things that make our food taste good.
Okay.
And so they're strong flavors, strong smells, tart. So you're thinking like your herbs, your spices, sprouts, onions, garlic, things that have a lot of potency. Bless you.
Excuse me. Sorry.
Yeah. Have a lot of polyphenols. Sheep fat, goat fat, duck fat, they have a lot of polyphenols. So in the winter, when we maybe don't have a lot of root vegetables and things around to eat, you can know and rest assured that you're benefiting your microbiome by eating a lot of polyphenol-rich foods in the winter. Warming spices, cinnamon, turmeric, clove, essential oil of clove, all of these things, right?
Yeah.
And people tend to want that anyway. You can get these same benefits from eating well-sourced animal proteins. Oh. So if you eat an animal that ate not only a species-appropriate diet, but was allowed to forage for the nutrients it needs, its meat is going to have more of these micronutrients. Yeah. And there's have you heard of Stefan Van Vliet?
No. Okay,
so Stefan Van Vliet is a researcher. I'm going to butcher this. I think he's at the University of Illinois, maybe Indiana. I think it's Illinois. He's done a lot of research on the food matrix and is actually one of the researchers that's doing research on pastured, grass-finished beef.
Oh, okay.
That we don't have a lot of studies on. So previously, it's you couldn't really say that grass-finished beef or pastured sheep was better for you.
Right.
We didn't have the data. Like, people knew that innately, but we didn't have the data. Now they know that the more species of grasses that the cattle eats, the more nutrients are in their in their meat, which is why lamb and elk and bison and game tend to be more nutrient dense, even in terms of their omega-3 fats. So typically we think of omega-3 fats, which is an essential fatty acid coming from fatty fish, which it does.
Yes. Yep.
You can also get it from pastured animals. So there you go.
Yeah. And that one is eat meat. Yes. And that one is, I'll have to look him up because I live in beef country, as do you, and I get lots of grief from the conventional ranchers on grass finished. I mean, that's like a dirty word here. So I'm happy to be the weirdo, but I'm like, someday I will have more data and you will see I'm right. I mean, I don't say it like that, but it's just, I'll have to go check them out.
Yeah. And like I always tell people, I'm like, I mean, if you like the taste of grain finished beef, that's fine.
That's fine.
It's fine. And, you are accustomed to that flavor. But the flavor of our food informs our body, including our circadian rhythm, about what season it is. Yeah. Yes. And I know you're writing a cookbook, and I was like, I had to put this in there because I was so excited about all this new research on polyphenols. And when something tastes good, we want to eat it, and there's a reason for that.
Yes. And I think we talked about Fred Provenza's book last time. Mm-hmm. Right. And that one, I just still keep thinking about. I'm going to have to reread it because that's
I need to too.
Just like enlightening on that whole topic, all the little flavors and how it signals. And I'm just fascinated by that. So,
Yeah. I mean, this is ancient knowledge.
Yes.
I mean, so coming into spring, that is when, so I eat mostly a ketogenic-ish kind of diet in the wintertime. And I will add in some cellular stable carbohydrates based on my cycle. And I advise my clients to do that as well, like around ovulation, the week before your cycle, eating those potatoes and your squashes and all of that kind of stuff. And then as spring comes, that's when I'll get out my grow light and make some sprouts, some watercress, that kind of stuff. I'm not super strict about it. If I'm out at a restaurant, I want some fries and consistency over perfection.
Yep,
but I think it's when you get your circadian rhythm right, I think the light is probably the biggest mover for a lot of people. It's very difficult for people to wrap their mind around. Like, how could this really make that big of an impact? But if you think of it within the context of trying to align with nature, why wouldn't it make the most difference? So we evolved into the sun. And when you get that circadian rhythm and your signals mostly consistent, your cycle will line up with the lunar cycle, absent other things. But that's why if you're like, oh, wow, this is wrong and my hormones are off or that is off, that is a sign that your circadian rhythm is off.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yep.
So
it makes so much sense. And it really, this topic, well, maybe even more than many others, like just reminds me of the essence of Old Fashioned on Purpose. Like we're going back very intentionally to something so simple, but something so forgotten. And when we do, it brings us so many things into alignment without, almost accidentally.
Yeah. And I think, and a thought on that too, a lot of these blue light glasses and the red light panels, it just seems so biohacky and weird. And so that's why a lot of people are like, ugh, I don't want to do this. And I agree. I have that gut instinct too. Mm-hmm. But it is really hard in our modern world to not use some of those tools because we're not living outside.
Exactly. We're in an unnatural environment. So sometimes we have to use the hacks to go back in that weird modern way, which is that tension, that paradox that I run into a lot with even just food. I'm using an Instant Pot to cook beans, which, you're like, okay, that's hypocritical. I'm like, no, it's not. It's using what we have in our modern world to get back. And it's that weird tension. Yeah.
And understanding that. And I think, I'm staring at a computer I'm so grateful. I feel blessed that I have the opportunity to communicate with you and all these people. But this thing's emitting radiation and blue light like nobody's business. Yeah. But I'm not going to like worry about that. I have my red light panel on. I have, like some candles. I will go outside after this and do some chores because I have to haul water because our water froze, And then instead of going, I don't want to go outside, it's so cold, I'm going to be like, I'm going to go get some natural light signals. Yes. This is so great.
Yes.
And another point I get asked a lot about is grounding. So I'm sure that this is going to be a question that'll pop up.
Okay.
Well, so for people that don't know, grounding is where basically like we're an electromagnetic being, right? That's why we do EKGs and stuff.
Yes.
And the earth puts off natural radiation. Like that's what that whole electron transport chain inside our mitochondria, inside our cells that makes energy, like we're an electrical being. So in the health and wellness space, there's this whole concept of like going out and standing barefoot on the ground because you're going to connect with the earth to discharge all of this junk radiation and junk light, which is true. But you're obviously not going to walk barefoot in the snow right now.
Probably not.
No, and you don't have to. All you have to do is touch something that's alive.
Yeah.
Yep. Right? Yep. So go touch your dog's nose or the udders of a cow. Yep. And now know, I'm grounding.
Yes.
Because the cow is grounded. Your house is grounded. So when that water is coming through your pipes and you're taking a bath or you're doing the dishes, it's just one more way to be thankful of like, I'm washing the dishes. I'm grounding.
Yes.
I'm getting infrared heat from hot water. So doing those things, it's like almost knowing that you can be more intentional about being old fashioned on purpose because that's what we're doing.
Yep.
So.
Yep. And those little shifts. I think about that a lot with just movement. And over the years, I've shifted like, okay, I need to go walk. I need to go down to the lower pasture and, oh my gosh, I have to go catch a horse. But now it's like, no, I'm going to get steps and I'm going to get movement. I'm going to get my heart rate up. And like just seeing those little day-to-days is like they're doing double duty. It just shifts. It really shifts how you move throughout your day. And I think it's really good.
Yeah, I agree. And I've listened to so many podcasts on, other homesteaders and talking about really embracing this way of life, embracing cooking meals, embracing doing the dishes and being together. And this just fits into that because we're just trying to kind of recreate, what we've lost but we have all these gadgets so that I don't have to yell at my husband when he wakes up and turns on every single light, even though, didn't you get them low?
I know. Yep.
When I first put these blue blockers on, the orange ones, I at first tried to really align it with sunset. I was like, okay, but we're eating dinner in the dark, right? Because it's Montana.
Yes, it's Montana. Yeah.
So I started this 2 years ago. So I was like, well, I put the orange blue blockers on at dinner. And he was just like, no, I can't. I can't take you seriously. You look like Bono. Please take them off. And I also realized that I couldn't tell if the meat was done, because so I was like, this is ridiculous. You're taking this a little bit too far. Just after dinner, the glasses on.
Yep.
During the daytime on screens, I will sometimes wear the yellow ones. There's like yellow blue blockers, or there's software programs. One of them is called Iris. One of them is called f.lux, Lux. You can download that so it will reduce the blue light.
Oh.
I don't think you need to block all the blue light during the day because that's when you would have blue light in nature.
Yes.
But if you're having issues with your eyes, like, staring at this computer is killing me, then yeah.
Oh, that brings me to a really random question. Sometimes I played with putting like a red tint on my phone screen. Does that do anything? And then every time I forget it's there because I get used to it. And then I'll hand my phone to someone to show them. They're like, what is wrong? But I'm like, I don't know, maybe I'm crazy, but I'm curious if that actually helps.
Yes, it does.
Okay.
A caveat. The night shift option doesn't really block enough blue light.
I've noticed that because it still feels pretty pretty white, bluish.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
So I don't know how you figured out to make your screen red, but I always tell people just Google it. There's like a million YouTube videos.
I Googled it.
Yeah. Just go. Yeah.
Can never remember how to undo it or redo it. I have to Google it every single time because I can never remember how to get into it. But it works.
Me too.
Yeah.
Me too. And it's really interesting. Like I have a lot of people that ask me questions like, I have to have a midnight snack. I'm really hungry. I crave nuts at night or whatever, or my blood sugar, when they wear those glucose things, my blood sugar's out of whack. Yes, there could be that you're not getting enough nutrients. Maybe you didn't eat enough protein that day.
Yeah.
But from a light perspective, if you're watching TV or looking at your phone on factory settings, in all that blue light is hitting your eyes because you're not wearing your orange blue blockers, your brain thinks it's noon and it thinks you should eat.
Yeah.
So that's why you're feeling snacky. Okay. So when I have people put the orange tinted glasses on, people with severe insomnia, I actually have them get red ones to wear for a couple hours before bed. It's real hard to walk around in those things. It is not safe. So if you have...
Take note, please.
Like PSA, if you
we will not be held responsible.
Elderly,
don't wear them when you're walking.
Yeah, if you, like my dad, for example, had big fall risk, I'm like, please do not wear blue blockers at night. Just, But the red ones, you put those on and you're basically like, I do not want to stay awake anymore. I want to go to bed.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
Yeah. My hairdresser yesterday, I got my hair cut, which is why it actually looks nice.
Looks beautiful.
She goes, yeah, I went to Mexico with my husband, which is a big thing also that people hear. They just escape and go south.
Yes.
And I came back and now I'm just so tired. I want to go to bed at 8 every night. I'm like, you should be going to bed every night.
Yes.
I know, but I'm feeling like I'm not very productive. I'm like, you shouldn't be productive. You can be productive in June.
Yep. And lean into that. Yeah.
Yeah. But it's like when you put those glasses on, you'll get that feeling of like, I just want to go to bed. And you should want to go to bed. These lights are not natural.
Yes.
They're artificially making you feel awake. So people will be like, well, I'm a night owl. I just like to stay up all night. I'm like, that's probably because you're watching TV and scrolling your phone with all the lights on.
For sure.
So you're training yourself to stay up late. So you can train yourself the opposite.
Amen. Yes.
Anyway.
Oh my goodness.
Okay. Well, we could go on and I should stop talking.
No, you're good. I'm just curious we're kind of rolling on time, which was absolutely fantastic. I cannot wait to publish this. I know the audience is going to love it.
I hope so.
So much good information. I have many notes here. Let's say someone's listening and they're kind of new to this. They've maybe heard about the blue blockers or the red light panels. They haven't done it yet. They're maybe like, where do I start? What would be your top 2 action steps to take away for someone who's like, I need to address this, but I just need a first step?
First step, sunrise.
Okay.
Sunrise. If you do nothing else, go outside for sunrise, even if it's 3 to 5 minutes.
Yep.
That would be number 1. I listen to a lot of historical fiction and I'm into all these books about the Appalachia stuff. And I can't remember whatever one I'm reading now. The woman was saying, this old woman was like, I've never missed a sunrise. And every day at sunrise, that is how I set my intention for the day. And I say, thank you, Lord, for providing this opportunity, another day, whatever. Hands down, number 1.
Okay.
Number 2, block junk light.
Okay.
That would be number 2. So you can go and invest in a fancy pair of blue blockers on a company like Bond Charge. I really like that company. I have a discount code there, actually. Just popped into my mind. Sutton. Real original.
Okay. Sutton.
Tton.
Okay.
Yeah. I think it's 15% off.
Sweet.
I can't remember. They have red light panels and all that stuff.
Okay.
They have nice blue blockers. They are not cheap.
Mm-hmm.
So if you want to get a cheaper option, you can go on Amazon and there's a company called Spectra 479 that is pretty inexpensive. There's a bunch of other inexpensive ones, companies. The Spectra 479 has clip-ons for people that wear readers.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
And what we did is I bought one nice pair for if we have company and I don't want them to think I look weird anyway, but or if I'm at a basketball game at 8:00 at night for my kid or whatever.
Yeah, I was there yesterday. That was, yep.
Basketball. My daughter's a figure skater, so we're in the ice rink a lot.
Yeah.
In the dark.
Yep.
So I sometimes won't do the full orange because I feel weird. So I'll do like the blue or not the blue. Oh my gosh, the yellow tinted ones.
Yep.
So what I did is I just bought a bunch of cheap ones on Amazon and I have them around the house like readers. You know how people have like their little reading glasses?
Yep.
I have a pair next to my bed. I have one in the living room. I have a couple pairs for the kids, like if they want to have their electronic time.
Yes.
And it's dark now. They're not my son's terrible at doing it. My daughter does. Anyway, so sunrise. Figure out when that is.
Okay.
Do it. Be consistent.
Yep.
Block artificial light.
Okay. Those are good exercises. Yep.
Yeah, I think those are the biggest movers for people.
Okay.
All the other stuff you can do later.
Yep.
I did write a blog on this. It's on Montana Functional Health's website.
Okay.
So mfhcare.com.
Okay.
And a lot of people were asking, I should probably do one on the protein on that thing. But this one has embraced seasonal and local flavors, using temperature and getting your light right. And it's like short and succinct.
Okay. We will put that in the show notes. We'll go grab that link and put it in the show notes.
Yeah.
Okay.
And then on Instagram this time of year, now that I'm back on it, I'm trying to post a little bit more about what this actually looks like in practice. Like, what does it look like in our house? Or I haven't done that, but I probably will.
Yeah.
You can learn a lot from your animals. You know, like it's funny. Most people in the homesteading community know that eggs are not are a seasonal food.
Yes.
Our ducks and chickens aren't really laying right now. And they're like, well, you could put on light. So sometimes I'll put on a light in there and think, oh, the ducks will gravitate towards the light and they'll go into the barn on their own. They will not go in.
Yeah.
So I have this really funny clip I posted because it's like I turn the light on and I'm thinking, oh, they'll be drawn to that light and that heat. They will not go. They're like, what is happening? What is
not
that
natural?
Not natural.
Yeah.
So, yeah, hopefully that's helpful.
That is extremely helpful. And remind us of your Instagram handle.
Oh, yeah. It's Sutton Outdoors MT.
Okay, Sutton Outdoors. We'll put that in the show notes too.
And I promise I'm working on it.
It's okay. I mean, I've been super slacking on social media content, which I'm like, if there's something to slack on, that's fine. It's okay. I'm doing real life things right now, so it's okay.
Yeah, exactly.
So, all right. Oh my goodness, Johnna.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
It was so good to chat. You are just amazing. And I hope we can continue to work together in the future because you're so helpful.
It's fun. It's so fun. Yeah. Yes. Reach out anytime with questions. And
absolutely.
I'd love to make it to Chugwater someday.
Come on.
My daughter's probably going to do a figure skating competition in Cody. I have no idea how far that is, but
probably not horribly far.
Yeah.
Probably not. Yeah. Not too bad. Not too bad.
Stop into the soda fountain.
From you or from me? For me, it's like we're at the opposite diagonals on the state of Cody. But it only takes, I think it's like 6 or 7 hours to drive across. So you probably wouldn't want to just swing down.
But for the soda fountain.
It might be a drive just for the soda fountain. So. All
right. Well, I'll continue to live vicariously.
Yes.
Then.
Okay. Someday will happen.
Someday.
But yeah.
Yes.
So
all right. Well, thank you so much, Jill. I appreciate you.
Thank you.
All right. Bye-bye.